The Terminator was one of the most memorable films of the 80s and as such received numerous video game adaptations, some far better than others. For the most part, they were side-scrolling platformers, although the arcade version was a rail shooter, and there was even a 3D DOS version where you could technically play as the Terminator trying to kill Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. One version in particular that stands out is the Terminator on Sega CD. This version was entirely its own thing. No other system has this particular iteration of the game, so it's definitely unique. However, because this version of the game is somewhat rare and due to the nature of Sega CD games in general being a bit harder to find, this game tends to go for anywhere from $80 on up to $100 or more in secondary markets depending on the condition. So let's dig into this one and find out if it's actually worth that much, and if it deserves the heaps of praise typically thrown on it from around the internet. Gameplay in this version consists of side-scrolling platforming action, and you play through the whole game as Kyle Reese. You start off with a basic gun that can be upgraded throughout the game, and you also find grenades that you can throw for a secondary weapon. At a glance, it looks more like a Contra clone, but with Terminator sprites thrown in than anything else, although each level is non-linear with lots of platforming and jumping around. The lack of a time limit encourages you to explore the area a bit. There are lots of secret little nooks and crannies to find, which house plenty of extra grenades, health, and one-ups. One thing that will immediately stand out is just how smooth this game plays. It's a Sega CD game, but they didn't try and break the mold here, and instead just made a really freaking smooth action platformer. All of the characters are all very well detailed, and the animations are just really smooth and high quality. From the Terminators to Kyle Reese, it all looks spot on. I especially like how once Kyle Reese returns to 1984, he changes outfits to that trench coat and those moldy hobo pants. Ugh, those pants always grossed me out. Dude, change your pants, come on. So each of the levels is loosely based on locations or events from the original Terminator movie. The first few levels actually take place in the future, and you have to make your way to the Skynet factory and get to the time machine so you can follow the Terminator back to the past. Technically, the movie didn't start in the future, but there were flashbacks, or flash-forwards, I guess, when Kyle Reese was telling Sarah Connor about the future, so that's pretty cool that they turned that into its own levels. They even got some of the little details right, like the skulls scattered across the ground and the half-blown-up wrecked trucks. Several areas from the movies are expanded upon here, including the streets of LA, the Tech-Noir bar, and eventually the factory where the film's final battle takes place. Sometimes the Terminator himself even shows up, and you can't kill him, you just have to knock him down long enough to run past, which is pretty cool. Although the levels all generally look fantastic, I will say that later levels turn into a little bit of where the heck am I supposed to go, and there's no directional arrow to gently guide you in the correct direction. Between each level, you get a cutscene, but hey, this isn't your standard 16-bit console, it's Sega CD, so you get actual digitized FMV sequences of portions of the film to help the levels all fit together. Most players will probably just skip these, and they're usually short anyway, under a minute, but weirdly the US version just has the main Terminator theme playing over them, while the European version actually has the real audio from the movie. I'm not really sure why that is, but there you go. Speaking of the audio though, that's another standout feature of this game is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was produced by Tommy Tallarico, who also worked on Earthworm Jim and the Sega version of Another World, among other things. There's a little bit of everything here, from some darker, slow tunes to some upbeat rock sounds and full-on 80s guitar solos. The actual sound effects of the game are somewhat unremarkable, but with the music, who cares? And the CD means you're getting CD quality renditions of everything, so it just sounds excellent. Alright, so if it seems like I'm gushing here, I'll say this game is really good, but it also has a few flaws that are difficult to ignore. For starters, although Kyle Reese can shoot diagonally in multiple directions, for some reason he can't shoot downwards. There are so many instances where being able to just crouch and shoot downwards off a ledge would be super helpful, and I'm not sure why they overlooked that. You also can't shoot straight upwards if you're on a ladder, so that's a thing. You can't just jump straight down off the steps that you're standing on either. I kept wanting to be able to jump off the stairs like in Castlevania 4, but once you're on the stairs, you're just kind of stuck there. You can't really hold yourself in one spot and shoot on the stairs either, so trying to shoot an enemy above you is a bit of an awkward dance. Also, this game is never quite sure if you're going to run forward when you try to shoot diagonally from the ground or not. If you start shooting first and then hold down the D-pad, you'll aim diagonally without moving, so you just kind of have to train your mind for that. None of this is a deal breaker, but it feels like with just a few more tweaks they really could have perfected the combat system here. I also wasn't crazy about some of the level designs either. It's not always apparent which surfaces you can walk through or behind. The elevators make sense, but occasionally there's just these weird laundry chutes that launch you into another part of the level. I wouldn't have even guessed I was supposed to jump here and thought I was just stuck. They also threw in a plethora of maddening stage hazards. In the police station and the factory, there's these electrical outlets spewing electricity that always seem to be in the most annoying possible spots when you're jumping around. There's several blind jumps in the factory that lead to falling into a vat of molten steel for some instant death. For the most part, the difficulty in the game isn't too rough, but it goes off the rails in the factory. There's this spot where you have to ride this thing, and occasionally it just opens and drops you back into enemies, which constantly respawn. So the trick here is it opens up right when it's about to pass these lights, but you wouldn't know that the first time through. The power-up system isn't much to write home about either. You get a handful of upgrades to your main weapon that allow for rapid fire and a little more damage, and you can find grenades all over the place, but that's about it. The bosses are somewhat unremarkable and can usually be beaten by just crouching and chucking grenades until the fight is over. Alright, so if it sounds like I'm dumping on this game all of a sudden, I'm not. I guess I just want to warn anyone that thinks they need to go out of their way to spend $150 buying this game on eBay that while it's pretty dang good, it's certainly far from perfect. I feel like fans of the first film will definitely be satisfied though, especially with the ending where you have to trap the Terminator in the Crusher so Sarah can push the button just like in the movie, and smash Arnold to bits. That's a nice touch, although no mention is made of the death of Kyle Reese sacrificing himself to save Sarah Connor, so that's weird. But overall, this is just a really simple, good-looking shooter with an excellent soundtrack. It's definitely still fun to pick up and play today, but probably not worthy of that hefty price tag unless you're just a rabid Sega CD collector. Hey, I wanted to let you know I also have a side channel called Friday Night Arcade Plays. If you've seen all the regular episodes here on the main channel and are looking for something extra, or just want to hang out with me in a more casual setting, stop by youtube.com/Friday Night Arcade Plays. I play random old and new stuff, and it's just kind of a laid-back, chill thing. I've got a whole backlog of older videos from the early days on the channel too, so you can check those out and see how bad they were. And if you're new here to the main channel, I've got over 100 official episodes, so you can binge them all from the beginning or check out the starter pack playlist if you like. I'll put a link to everything in the pinned comment below. If you want to subscribe for more, that's cool. If not, that's fine too. Either way, subscribe for new episodes here on the main channel, and you can also subscribe to Friday Night Arcade Plays for the more casual Let's Plays, or you can skip that if you don't want those cluttering up your feeds. I don't mind. As always, thank you for watching, and hope to see you soon over at Friday Night Arcade Plays. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.